It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Dumerang bumapimpana papam-ti-pom-pom.
Little bambinos, here we go.
Little bambinos, welcome to your Feel Good Breakfast Show, and to you parents watching as well. It's time for Baby Talk with Meg Faure. And the question we're asking this morning is, are you a parent trying to make sense of what colic is and when it stops? You're wondering what causes colic, how to prevent and manage it? Well, it is a common concern for parents out there, and so on today's Baby Talk, occupational therapist Meg Faure helps us to figure out when colic or fussing typically starts, and just how many babies are classified as colicky or fussy newborns.
I am so glad we're talking about this subject because I can now say that I'm lucky to be alive after my second child, Dominic. He was a colic baby, and for the first 3 months I had ringing in my ears, and if it wasn't for my wife, who was just absolutely amazing and handling it and keeping her cool, you know, I don't know how we would have survived otherwise.
When you say he's a colicky baby, it sounds cute, but it's nothing.
No, it's definitely far from cute. Meg, and I'm glad we're talking about this because we spoke about it a little bit off air. I feel it's misunderstood. I don't think there's a lot of knowledge or research maybe around it as to what causes it, but essentially what is colic?
So colic is just a prolonged crying. So, and it's kind of a bit of a misnomer because colic, if you look it up in the Webster's dictionary, means abdominal discomfort. So we all think that what's going on is that the baby's feeling uncomfortable in their tummy, but actually it's not that. It's what is actually known as early unexplained infant crying. We have no idea why they do it really. I mean, there's some things that we can do to kind of fix it a little bit, but at the end of the day, it really happens for no reason, and you can't predict which baby's going to get it either.
And that's what's so frustrating, I guess.
Yeah, that's very difficult because then you try everything from swaddling to shushing to burping to nothing works. So you say the cause of it is undefined at the moment.
Yeah, it's quite, well, I mean, we kind of have a sense of it. What usually happens with colics is it starts at around 2 weeks of age. So what you probably would have had, Ewan, was that 2-week honeymoon period when your baby is so good.
It was bliss, it was heaven.
Yeah, and
we
you
were
think, our second baby's fabulous.
Look at God.
And then it starts. And the Vessel's rule of 3 is how we define colic, which is 3 hours of a day, more than 3 days of the week, for more than 3 weeks. And so it's a lot of crying. I mean, you can imagine 3 hours of crying really can actually drive you completely mad.
And it did. I remember my wife leaving me alone with baby. She just needed a break for 45 minutes, you know, and she came back to a crying baby and a crying husband. And that's, it was a hectic. But you know, it's funny how it just stopped after around the 3.5 month mark. It just kind of stopped. But how many babies are classified as colicky or fussy babies? I mean, is it something that happens quite often?
Well, it's actually quite interesting. Recent research, they took a group of 2,000 babies and mums.
Yeah.
And
Can I just say that's a picture of me on the screen right now.
Yes. And so they took a group of 2,000 babies and they actually had a look at the incidence in those 2,000 babies. Parents reported 80% of the babies had colic. But when they evaluated it according to the Vessel's rule of 3s, it was actually only 20%. So that tells us that actually colic, when it's happening, feels a whole lot worse than it really actually is. So it's that crying that penetrates you. So the truth is only 20% of babies have colic, but about 80% of parents feel like their babies are crying too much.
Yeah, but it is an emotional thing, and you feel such an emotional connection to your baby. Like, whenever they cry and they feel like they're reaching the end of their breath, like, and then they're going to take a big breath before they start again. You're like, oh, the world is about to end. It's
and you
bad.
feel helpless as a parent.
So in a newborn, when can you expect colic to start and end?
Okay, so that's the good news about colic. It's completely defined. It starts at 2 weeks, it ends at 12 weeks. And across all nationalities, everybody across the world, it peaks at 6 weeks. So if you're going to have a crying baby, the crying peaks at 6 weeks and then dissipates. The risk factors are that we're much more likely to shake our babies out of frustration, and shaken baby syndrome is exceptionally dangerous. And that actually follows the colic curve. So about a week after the peak of colic, which is 6 weeks, we get this risk of shaken baby syndrome, which is why we take colic very seriously.
Where people actually shake their babies in order to do what?
Out of complete frustration.
Yeah, so Ewan's been there. I mean, you get to a point where you actually don't know anymore how you're going to stop this crying, and you think just a little shake, and it is exceptionally dangerous for babies' brains, which is why we do take colic very seriously. So when a parent presents with it, we say, or their child with it, we take it seriously.
All right, let's get our lines open. 0214309881. Baby Talk with Meg Faure. We're talking about colic, understanding it, managing it. Perhaps are you a parent dealing with it right now and you need some advice? Do give us a call. We'll be right back.
Pampers, wishing you love, sleep and play.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. It's Unity, your Feel Good Breakfast Show. Are you plugged in?
I'm plugged into the
Plugged
system.
in and ready to
Baby
go,
talk.
man. We're talking baby talk with Meg Faure this morning. It's all about colic babies, understanding colic, what you can do as a parent. We also open the lines to you, 0214309881. We have Joanne on the line. Joanne, good morning.
Hi, morning.
Good morning, Joanne. What's your question or comment?
My baby's been colic since 2 weeks. She's currently 9 weeks old. And the doctor recommended that we give baby a colic mixture. I wanted to find out, when do you stop that colic mixture? Because her colic time is in the afternoon. And we give it to her an half an hour before that time. When do we stop that colic mixture?
Thank you very much for that question, Joanne. Meg?
Yeah, and I would keep going with it at this stage because she's only 9 weeks old. You've probably only actually got another 3 weeks of the irritability going on. So I would keep it going probably for the next week or so, and then you can start to do it on alternating days and start to wind it down slowly but surely towards 12 weeks of age.
Yeah, and hopefully we can expect it to stop by 4 months, you said, right? So that
About
should
3
be-
months.
12 weeks,
About
you
3
said,
months.
yeah.
So it's 12 weeks, it's over.
I need to ask you this. I mean, you know, it is very tough for parents to deal with a colicky baby. We spoke about it a little bit earlier on, but is there anything that you can do to prevent it?
Yeah.
Is there, or is it just something that you're going to have to go through?
No, you certainly can do a couple of things. First of all, we know that breastfed babies are half as likely to have colic as formula-fed babies. So, number one, if you can, breastfeed.
Okay.
Number two, don't overfeed your baby. And what often happens is that with colic, we get into the cycle where we are feeding, baby's crying, we're feeding, baby's crying, and suddenly we kind of having hour to 2 hourly feeds. And that can actually make the tummy more irritable because it creates something called lactose intolerance or lactose overload. The baby doesn't actually have lactose intolerance, but it doesn't have enough lactase enzyme to actually digest
absorb and
all of the milk. So try and space your feeds a little bit. And then very importantly, make sure they're having a regular day sleeps because regular day sleeps prevent overstimulation.
I feel like saying, teacher, I have a question. So when it comes to overfeeding, is that only applicable to formula-fed babies, but are we talking about
Both.
breastfed babies too? You
Both,
say you can
because-
overfeed a breastfed
Yeah,
baby.
because there's lactose in any type of animal milk, including human milk.
Okay.
So you just want to space your feeds a little bit. If you've got a colicky baby and if they are gaining weight well, start to space their feeds to at least 2 to 3 hours
2 to
as
3
opposed
hours,
to kind of in that total rut of feeding all the time.
So let's move on a little bit. So obviously you kind of made it through the colicky period, which is the first 12 weeks. But then there becomes another stage around, you know, the 6 months to 12 months old baby where they start fussing. Is it a bit of a regression? Why do they start at that particular age start fussing once again?
Yeah, so it definitely is not colic at that age. So colic is something that really is very specific to the newborn. But from 6 to 12 months, babies start to really exert their temperament a little bit. So a couple of things. One is that your social butterfly, which is that baby who is fully engaged, eye contact, loving stimulation, they get irritable at that age because they don't like to be left sitting. They want to be with you all the time. They want to be in your arms and seeing the world with you. So they can be a little bit irritable for that. And they can also be irritable if they become overtired. So all babies, newborns, 6 to 12 months, and even older babies, if they're overtired, they're going to be more irritable. So that goes together.
Yeah. I sometimes, the other day I was looking at him and I was saying to him, dude, if you just close your eyes, you will sleep and you will love it. Just try it. I promise it works.
And that obviously went...
And, you know, I try to have these conversations with him. But I was going to ask the question, so in trying to prevent colic, is there something that mom can do before baby arrives? I'm talking in terms of diet, maybe lifestyle choices, certain things that can reduce the chances of your baby being colic?
Yeah, look, I mean, definitely smoking increases the risk of colic as well. So stop smoking. You shouldn't be smoking anyway in pregnancy, but please don't do that. Also, you know, we do find that mums who are very stressed through pregnancy do have babies that are somewhat more irritable and dysregulated. So really try and cut out the stress. There are a million reasons why you shouldn't have too much stress in pregnancy, but that would be one of them as well.
Is there any long-term consequences or effects of prolonged crying or, you know, if we talk about a high-needs toddler going forward in life because of that particular period?
Yeah. So, first of all, colic in and of itself, there's no long-term consequences at all. So, of that small percentage of babies that do have colic, which is 20%, they're not going to necessarily have long-term problems. However, very interesting research, which was only actually published this week in Australia, showed that a combination of a fussy, irritable colic baby plus feeding problems later on, who don't like to go onto solids, plus little ones who are not sleeping well and having multiple wakings at night. So those three things together in the first year of life do seem to predict for some long-term issues. But colic in and of itself, in isolation, when the baby gets better at 12 weeks, does not have long-term
It's just
consequences.
good vocal cord training.
Absolutely.
Stage.
Yeah, man. All right, Meg, thank you very much. We always appreciate you coming around and sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you so much. And thank you so much also to our callers being engaged in the topic.
Absolutely. Colic and understanding it. All I can say is, parents,
Be patient.
take a deep breath. It will pass.
Yeah.
From the first moment, everything that touches your baby should be this comforting. That's why Pampers, the #1 choice of pediatricians, brings you premium care, now lined with our softest comfort and best skin protection. So every touch is as comforting as the first. Pampers, wishing you love, sleep and play.